Good afternoon, everybody. I want to thank you again for your willingness to join us this afternoon here for Black Wealth Matters. We're excited today. We have my man from Huntsville, Alabama, Donald. Don, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Pastor Green. Listen, I've been looking forward to this for weeks, so I'm glad to be here, and thank you for the invitation. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, so just for those of you that may not be aware, Don Daniel is the founder, the CEO of the Pill Method. He has helped thousands of families and individuals move up to a place of financial freedom. And we're excited about what he has to share with our congregation and with Ruby Nation. And so, y'all bear with me. I know I'm having some little internet challenges here at the church, but we're going to get right into his presentation. And so, we're going to have a word of prayer. And what we want to encourage you to do is throughout his talk this afternoon, if you would just please post some questions in the chat. He is a teacher and would love to answer questions that you may have. And honestly, this is not the only time we're going to have Don with us. We definitely want him to come back and to share with our church because we're desiring to become more generous and financially free. And so the tools that he has to share with us are going to help us to reach that goal. So Don, again, thank you so much for your willingness to share. We'll just have a word of prayer and we'll get started this afternoon. God, we just want to say thank you. We thank you for just being a great God. We thank you for giving your people wisdom in how to teach and lead into next levels. And I just pray you be with Don tonight as he shares with us about how to move to a place of financial freedom. We just pray that you would just open up our hearts and our minds to receive what he has to say in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. All right. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Listen, thank you so very much for this opportunity. I want to start here. In 2008, right here in Huntsville, Alabama, I met a young couple right out of college with student loans and a brand new mortgage. And when they heard about what I did, they did some investigation and decided to adopt the PIL method, which stands for prepayment of principal, isolating the principal amount, and leveraging and liquidity. So 6.5 years later, they paid off that mortgage. 6.5 years later, and the next year, both of them who had student loans, and they went to a private Christian college, and you know how expensive that is. They both went to a private Christian college, and the next year, all their student loans were paid off. So, and they did that on a school teacher's salary, and this guy was a new real estate agent. So, I'm telling you, it can be done. And here is what we haven't had. I don't think I've been asking this question for 18 years. How many people actually have sat down in a class and learned how to read an amortization schedule? That's the schedule that your loans are based on. Learn how to read it, learn how to decipher it, learn how to manipulate it and make it work for you so that you can pay off all of your debt, your mortgages, your student loans, your credit cards in about 7 to 9 years. Now, why is that important? It's important because the gospel is free, but ministry costs money. And God has given us resources to use. And it just so happens that people can be doing the right thing for the right reasons, but they don't understand there might be a different way to get it done. But the way that we're doing it now serves the the purposes of the enemy. And I want to listen. Can I share? Let me share something with you. Let me put something else on the screen here. Okay. I want to put this on the screen. We're going to share our screen here. We're going to put this on. There we go. All right. No, let me take this off for a second here. Take that down. Put this over here. All right. Now we'll share it. All right. You should be able to see this. Okay. So what we're going to be talking about today is how to better use God's resources. And there's a reason why. And I'm going to give you some background here. Let me start with this slide. This is from Counsels on Stewardship, page 259. And if you didn't know that, if you don't know this, you really should know this, that Counsels on Stewardship is a wealth building manual. Did you hear what I said? It is a wealth building manual. And this, listen to this. She was in Australia when she wrote this. Every year, many pounds are being swallowed up by the interest paid on debts. If this money, talking about the interest money, if this money was appropriated to settle the principal, the debt would not be eating, ever eating. So what, from reading this, what do you believe is the big problem with borrowing money today? Is it the amount of money that we borrow? Or is it the interest we pay on what we borrow? And if we could take that interest money, and here's the key, if we could take the interest money to pay down the debt, then the debt would stop eating and we can get rid of it faster. Doesn't that make sense? It just so happens it can be done. We have just never been taught how a loan actually works. Do you know that the very first self-amortizing loan entered the US in 1936? And there's virtually no education on how the thing works. We're expected to use mortgages, student loans, credit cards, car loans without actually knowing how the loan works. Did you the interest-bearing loan is the most ubiquitous financial tool on the planet, and none of us have had a class on how it actually works. Therefore, we're paying about 75 to 80% more interest than we need to pay. Did you realize you don't need more money to get out of debt faster? You just need to pay less interest. I like what she says here. Here is one of the reasons why I think we don't know about interest. And listen, what we're going to be learning today, it's not about what people of color haven't been taught. What we're going to share with you today, this isn't being shared with anyone. People do not know this. Your accountant, what I'm getting ready to show you tonight, your accountant doesn't know. Your real estate agent doesn't know. The person that sold you your mortgage does not know. You don't need to sell mortgages. You don't need to know how a mortgage actually works. Did you know that? And if there are any MLOs or mortgage loan originators out there, you know what I'm talking about. If there are any real estate agents listening to me right now or watching me right now, you also know that you didn't have to take a test on how a mortgage actually works to get your license. So why haven't we been taught this? And why haven't we learned this back in high school? Let me give you what I think could be the answer. I need you to read this chapter. Start this chapter from the very beginning. Pull your book out. Pull your Counsels on Stewardship out. On page 154, start this chapter from the beginning. And you will get, listen, you'll get a brain full. But let's start right here. This is Satan speaking. We must do our utmost to prevent those who labor in God's cause from obtaining means to use against us. Keep the money in our own ranks. The more means they obtain, the more they will injure our kingdom by taking from us our subjects. The very thing that you are attempting to do right now, provide for your families, put a roof over their heads, purchase education, save for retirement. There are, and if you're a pastor, oh my goodness, if you're in the work, you may be asked to move and then try to sell this house and try to buy another one. There seem to be so many financial constraints that we do so much we have to do just to try to survive. But the way we go about it, we don't have to. We can actually buy more for less if we knew how the lending system actually worked. How would you like to know that today? If you would like to know something about that, I need you to put something in the comment section and let me know you would like to know how all of this works so that we can do something more with what we have so that we can have more money that can go into the work and do the very thing that Satan is afraid of. Keep the money in our own ranks. Keep them paying interest. Keep them paying more for what they're getting so they don't have the money to put into the work. Let me share with you this. 90% of the people you know, 90% of the people you know will never pay off a home. Never. And I'm talking about the people that you know. Think of all the people that you know that have a mortgage that have actually paid one off. It will be probably less than 10% of the people you know. But 30-year loans should pay off in about 7 to 9 years if you know how they work. And we're going to show you how they work today. This can only be done through optimization, paying the right amount at the right time, all right, in the right month, on the right day of the month, to the right loan. You don't need more money. And let me tell you this right now, before we go any further. The financial situation you find yourself in today, if it's a situation that you wish were better, if you're in a situation that you wish it was better, if you're in a situation that seems tough, most of us, most of you, most everybody I've ever met, we're not in financial jeopardy because of being irresponsible. We're in financial difficulty because we're actually following the advice we've been given. The advice that we've been given, not good. Can I give you an example here? If we were live, I would ask you, what do you know about what are some of the tips and tricks you could give me about handling debt? What's the best way? And here's some of the answers that I've gotten in the past. You can round up your mortgage payment. You can pay a little bit more every month on your mortgage, on your loan, on your car loan, on your credit cards. Okay. There is what's called a biweekly payment. And I need you to take some notes down. And if you hear something that resonates with you, you can put that question in the chat section. All right. You can refi to a lower rate, get a 15-year mortgage. You could do that. You could put a large down payment on your loan. You could do whatever you can do to get the lowest interest rate available. Let me tell you something. All of these are wrong. All of them. I can show you the numbers where you don't want to do any of these. Okay. And rounding up, that's not a good idea. Biweekly payments, if you that's not something that you want to do once you find out how it really works. And never ever get a 15-year mortgage. Don't do it. I just did a show the other day on our YouTube channel where Dave Ramsey says if you can't afford a 15-year mortgage, then you can't afford the house. Well, that couldn't be further from the truth. Get a 30-year mortgage and pay it off in about 7 or 9 years. Okay. Large down payments. Never do a large down payment. And I'll show you the math on that. Okay. And right now, interest rates are over 7% again. And let me tell you, if you can afford your mortgage now at 7%, get the house now. Because the higher interest rates, and I'm going to say this twice so you can get it. The higher interest rates actually work better in saving money and getting out of debt faster than the lower interest rates. One more time, the higher interest rates actually work better than the lower interest rates in saving money and getting out of debt faster if you can afford the payment. Okay? Let's go through some of this right now so that we can understand what's really going on behind the scenes. Okay? So let me start here. Okay? We can do all of this. We can do all of this and be out of that. We can own our homes free and clear and be completely out of debt if that's your goal. It can be done. And you can do this without refinancing, without change to your budget, and without sacrificing lifestyle. What? Without sacrificing lifestyle. You know, I don't like those plans where it says, don't go anywhere, don't do anything, drive a 30-year-old car, eat beans and rice 7 days a week, and cut up your credit cards and sell pizzas at night. Nope, we don't want to do that. We want to use our current budget, leveraging our current budget correctly, and make it impossible for the bank to charge you all of that interest. How would you like to know that? How to give the bank back their money in such a way that it makes it impossible for them to charge you all of that interest. And even churches, watch me now, even a church can pay off their debt in about 5 to 7 years, understanding how an amortization schedule actually works. Okay? So, you will not hear this information from your accountant, from your financial planner, from your banker. So, Don, where did you get it? Well, I have what's called ASD, autism spectrum disorder. So when I look at an amortization schedule, I see things in pictures and patterns. I see things other people don't see. And so I'm going to share with you what I see in an amortization schedule. And then once you see what I see, you'll know what I'm talking about. Here is where else you will not hear this information. You will not get this information from Dave Ramsey, from Susie Orman, from Gene Chatsky, and you won't get it from G. Edward Reed. And why? The ability to read an amortization schedule is not taught at any level of financial education. You're taught how to create one. You're not taught how to read it and make it work for you. Okay? Here's what PIL stands for: prepayment of principal, isolating the principal amount, leverage, and liquidity. Here is the formula that makes so much money for banking institutions. It only makes them money. It only makes this kind of money because we have not been taught how the thing actually works. This is the most inefficient way on the planet to pay back money. But it is only that way when you don't know what you need to know. That makes so much money, but there's a weakness in the system. I'm going to show you the weakness in the system today. So I'm glad Pastor Green said we need to come back because there's so much information. We're just going to scratch the surface. There is just so much more to learn and to know. We'll scratch the surface tonight, but with what we're going to learn, you will be able to start saving a little bit. You will want to know more when I show you this. Okay. So if the banking system has a formula to make money, where is your formula to save money? Here is what banks don't want you to know. Let's get into it. Amortized interest is deceptive. So deceptive, this is what I call it: financial violence, the way lending is practiced today. Because it's based on information we don't have. The bank owners understand it well, but they don't even teach it to their employees. Bank owners don't teach their employees how loans and mortgages actually work. So the person that sold you your house, the person that provided your loan, please do not be upset with them, because they're doing the best they can with what they have. Okay? I'm not even upset with banks. I like banks, to tell you the truth, because I like borrowing money at a discount. I'm going to show you how to borrow money at a discount. Okay? The interest rate you are quoted is not the interest rate you pay. Okay? The interest rate you're quoted is not the interest rate you pay. This is going to be the basics of what we're going to be talking about this evening. Here's a $500,000 mortgage. The interest rate is a low 3%. The payment amount is $2,108.02. But here's how much interest the bank wants on this loan: $258,887.20. Does this look like $258,000? Does that look like 3% of 500,000 to you? I'm looking for people in the chat. Does that look like 3% to you? I just need to know. Okay? Because it isn't. What it actually is 51.777%. All 3% loans, all 3% loans for 30 years are 51% loans. Linda Hill says no. Jacqueline Parker says no. Pastor Green says no. All right. So here's what you also need to know. What if this loan was 4%? Now the bank wants $359,000 interest on a $500,000 loan. That's 71% of what you borrowed. 4% loans are actually 71% loans. 5% loans, you're going to pay back almost as much in interest as you borrowed in principal. This $500,000 house, by the time you're done, is $966,000. Do you want to pay $966,000 for your $500,000 house? That's a 93% loan. At 6%, Lord have mercy. Now we're paying $579,190 in interest on a $500,000. We're paying more in interest than we borrowed in principal. Ladies and gentlemen, that's one house for the bank and one house for you. How many are interested in that kind of plan where we buy one house for the bank while we're trying to buy a house for our family? Any hands for that one? All right. And here's where we are now. 7%. 7% means you're going to pay back $697,000 on a $500,000. Now, how do I know that? How do I know that? Because we said earlier, 9 out of 10 people you know have never paid off a mortgage and will never pay off a mortgage. That's 9 out of 10 people you know. If your kids were going to, let me put it this way, would you send your children to a school that failed to graduate 90% of its students? No, you would not. So why are we in a system where 90% of us are set up to fail and will not do the very thing we set out to do? Let's turn those numbers around. And we can. We can. Okay? So let me give you just an example of what's happening with our money. Why it is so difficult for us to do what we need to do and give more to the cause of God, because we're just trying to live, doing the best we know how. Yeah, but there was a poet not too long ago that said, when you know better, you can do better. What do you say? Watch this. $300,000 mortgage at 4.25%. The payment is $1,062.50. The very first principal payment is $413.32. This is how much goes to principal or to pay down the loan. Out of $1,062, only $413 actually pays down the loan. The rest of the money goes to interest. Total interest paid in the first year, $12,652. Total interest paid in the first 10 years, $115,000. That's an average of $962 a month for 10 whole years. The amount of principal, the money that you're paying, the amount of principal, you paid that down by $61,000. So $61,000 of your hard-earned dollars paid down the loan. $115,000 went to interest. You have to pay the bank $115,000 on this loan just to pay down your loan by $61,000. And when you add it all up, in the first 10 years, that's $177,000 paid out on a $300,000 loan in the first 10 years. And you wonder why, and you're wondering why we don't have the money to put into the work. Yeah. Isn't that something? Is the total interest $1,062, or is that the total payment? No, the total payment is $1,062.50. That's the total interest. That's the total payment. $413 out of that payment goes to principal. The rest goes to interest. Okay. Thank you for your question, Wendell. All right. And if you have any more questions, please put them out there. So how many like the idea of paying $177,000 of your hard-earned money, but only $61,000 of that money went to pay down the loan? There's got to be a better way. So today, I may just get to go over prepayment of principal. Now, by the time I'm done, I'm hoping by the time I'm done, someone will not ask, can we do this? Is it something we can do? I'm going to show you why you shouldn't ask me that question at all, ever. Because this is something you're going to find in your mortgage papers. It's the borrower's right to prepay. This is in your mortgage papers. Pull them out, and you'll see this. It's probably right around the mortgage note page. But it says this: you have the right to make payments of principal at any time before they are due. This is important. Please make notes. You have the right to do this. You don't have to ask permission. You don't have to call anybody. Okay. You don't have to do anything special. When you sign that mortgage, you got this information. You have the right to make these payments. Let's understand what it means. The banks are required to give you this. They're not required to explain it to you. That's why we're here. A payment of principal only is known as a prepayment. Paying anything before it's due is called a prepayment. Okay, let's see how we can use that. When I make a prepayment, I will tell the note holder in writing that I am doing so. Now, how that note holder wants to be alerted in writing is up to them. Some even make it as easy as putting it on their website. You can pay principal only. It says put it on this line. That's the same as notifying them. Just call your banking institution and find out how they want to be notified about prepayments. Let's find out what they can do. You can make a full prepayment. That means pay off the entire loan, or make partial prepayments without paying any prepayment charge. Okay? All right. All right. So the note holder will use all of my prepayments to reduce the amount of principal that I owe under this note. If I make a partial prepayment, there will be no changes to in the due date or in the amount of my monthly payment unless the note holder agrees to that, agrees in writing to those changes. Listen to this part again. The note holder will use all of my prepayments to reduce the amount of principal that I owe under this note. All. That means there is a way to give the bank back money and make it impossible for them to charge you interest. And this is how we're going to go and how we're going to understand how this works. Here's a $200,000 mortgage. I use this as something that's simple. We're going to use something that's more relevant to California in just a little bit, but I'm using this as a training tool. $200,000 at 6% for 30 years. The payment is $1,199.10, $1,199.10. Okay. By the time it's all said and done, the bank wants $231,676 in interest on this loan, or a total of $431,000 to buy a $200,000 house, which makes the total interest paid as a percentage of principal, or the tip, 115.838%. Anybody want a 115% loan? I do not. Let's learn how to read this. Now, I'm going to put this on the screen, so please put your questions in the chat if you want me to go over something again. Out of this very first payment, I need you to pay attention to the headings. Principal at the top, interest at the top, cumulative principal, cumulative interest, and principal balance. When you get your amortization schedule from the bank, they will not give you these two columns, cumulative principal and cumulative interest. They will not give that to you. Okay? And there's a good reason why they will not give that to you. Just because you would know what's going on, and there would be such a loud cry, they would have to start doing something different. Okay? But out of that first payment, look how much money goes to principal. Look how much money goes to interest. Do you see the principal payments? Technically, these are mortgage payments. The principal. That's how much you borrowed. The mortgage is on how much you borrowed. So the principal payments are mortgage payments. The interest is not mortgage. They're not mortgage payments because you didn't borrow that money. That is, well, let's call it rent. That's rent on your money. You go from renting a house or renting an apartment to renting money your entire life. Remember what she says. If we could use this interest money to pay down the debt would not be eating, ever eating. I'm going to show you how to do that this evening. Are you ready? Are you ready? So when you pay that $199.10 to your loan, they're going to take $1,000 and account that as interest. So you're paying down that loan by $199.10. So you owe $199,800.90. The bank uses this number to calculate your next payment. And on line 2, let's call the first payment January. That would mean the second payment would be February, where $200.10 goes to principal and $9.99 goes to interest. Your payment stays the same, but the loan configuration changes each and every month. You pay a little more principal, a little less interest. Okay? So now in month 2, you're paying $200.10 and $999 goes to interest, and you're left with a mortgage payment of $199,600.80. Does this make sense to everybody? Okay? Makes sense? All right. So let me show you this. Let's say we start out in January. We made our January payment. January payment has been made. Okay? Now, what is February's principal payment by looking at this chart? January's principal payment. Can you see it? $200.10. Based on what we read, remember what you're right? You can give money to the bank before it's due, okay? It's called a prepayment. So I've made my January payment. I can see February's principal payment. Now, I'm not explaining my program. I'm just explaining how a loan works. And I'm picking these numbers because they're easy. You can prepay any amount. I'm just using this because it's easy to see in this chart. So if I make January's payment and I see February's principal payment, do I have to wait till February to give the bank this $200.10? I'm going to wait for the answer. Do I have to wait till February to give the bank the $200.10? Okay. If I have it, can I give it to them in January? If I have it, the answer is yes. And when I give that money to the bank, I see you, Joycelyn. I see you, Pastor Green. All right. Okay. So you don't have to wait. Okay. Tosin says you don't have to wait. So if you have it, can you give it to them in January? And when you do, guess what? All of that money goes to principal. None of it goes to interest. And you're paid down to line 2 in January, where you owe $199,600.80. So if you're down to line 2 in January, then your next mortgage payment is on what line of this schedule? Wouldn't that be line 3? Yeah, you'd be on line 3. So what just happened? Not for $1,200 did we get rid of line 2, but for only $200.10. We're compressing the amortization schedule. So payment number 1 is now touching payment number 3. Payment number 2 has been eliminated with just $200.10. So I have to ask you all, and I'm going to wait for this one. What happened to the $999 on line 2 if we're already on line 3? What happened to the $999 on line 2? I'm going to wait for some answers. Okay? I'm going to wait for some answers. Anybody want to give a guess? What happens to that $999? It goes to the lender, free money. Nope, it got smaller. Timothy Wendell says it got smaller. Wendell Timothy says it got smaller. Okay. Well, what if I told you it did get smaller? It got smaller, went all the way to 0. That's $999 you do not have to pay. It has been canceled. By giving the $200 early, You don't have to pay this $999. Did you know your mortgage worked like that? Do you see why this is not taught at any level of financial education? Can you imagine that this has been left out of our financial education just by paying $200 early? I don't have to pay that $999 on line 2. My next mortgage payment would be on line 3. If we know this, watch this one. I make my January payment. I'm looking at this schedule. What if I give the bank, I might have a little bit of money sitting in my savings account. And guess what? That money in my savings account is making 1/10 of 1%. 1/10 of 1%. Certainly not taught to us until now. Oh, what was the window? I appreciate you. Come on now. Listen, $200.10 to principal. You make your mortgage payment in January and says, you know what? I'll give you $200.10 out of my bank account. That's making me 1/10 of 1% interest. Oh, and I'm going to give you $201.10 also. That's the principal on line 3. Oh, and I'll give you the principal on line 4, $202.10. I'll give you all of that. That's $603.30. By giving them $603.30 early, what happens to the next 3 interest payments? And if you're doing some rounding, isn't the fact you just saved about $3,000 in interest you don't have to pay? And your next mortgage payment is actually on line 5. Payment number 1 is now touching payment number 5. You're compressing that amortization schedule. Just look at that, Joycelyn. She says it goes away. Come on. I love it. I absolutely love it. Goes away. Can you see that? Okay. Isn't that great? With a little bit of money, every time you go to a department store or the grocery store and you buy something on sale, don't they print at the bottom of the receipt how much money you saved? And most of you, if not all of you, have paid extra on a mortgage, have paid extra on a student loan or a car loan or a credit card. But you've never, ever received a receipt from any banking institution that said, thank you very much for the extra payment. Here's how much interest you just saved. If your grocery store can tell you how much you save, if your department store can tell you how much you save, certainly your banking institution could tell you if they wanted to, but they don't. And do you know what's worse, ladies and gentlemen? We've never even bothered to ask because we have been conditioned not to ask. We just give them the money. We know we're saving something, but we certainly don't know what it is. And when it comes to dealing with your debt, ladies and gentlemen, it's not just enough to throw money at it. You want to know how much interest you're saving anytime you're doing something. You want to know what you're getting for your money. And because you know, you can now optimize the use of your money. Meaning, if you give the right amount of money at the right time, you can increase the amount of interest you save per dollar given. Doesn't it make sense? In fact, once you understand how this amortization schedule actually works, you will find out you want to give the least amount of money out of your budget, to make sure you're maximizing the most interest you can save per dollar. Giving more than the optimal amount at the wrong time, actually you save less interest per dollar. And the reason why we are doing what we're doing is because we need to save interest. We're not trying to pay off the loan fast. We're trying to pay it off cheap. And here's why. If all of your loans were 0% interest, would there be any financial benefit to paying them off early if they were all 0% interest? And the answer is no. There's no benefit to that. So why does every program on the planet, Mr. Ramsey included, focus on how fast to pay off the principal and not even mention saving interest? I'm going to give you some things based on this information that we have right here. How the very things that we've been taught to do, we need to stop doing. Mr. Wendell, what are you saying here? Can you go over when you make those extra $200 payments, please? So right now, the basics are give the bank their money before the next payment is due. That's the basics. Now, if you had a computer program, it could tell you exactly when to pay, what day to pay it on. But for the purposes for tonight, just know that the money given to the bank before the next payment is due makes it impossible for them to charge you interest. Okay, so let's understand what's really going on here. Okay, every time you make a payment, you're getting potential equity. You're increasing the distance between how much you owe and how much your house is worth. The difference between how much you owe and how much your house is worth, that's called equity. It's in the middle there. Okay? So when you make a payment, then some of that money goes to what I call potential equity. I call it potential because what you're doing, you're hoping that the housing prices don't go down. Okay? But for the most part, over the years, you're going to win out. So don't worry about it. Okay? So here's what we're saying. To get $199 worth of equity, it costs $1,000 to get it. Okay? To get $200.10 worth of equity doing the bank schedule, it costs $999 to get it. So by prepaying the numbers that we just talked about, you get your equity for free. If I give them the $200 early, if I give them the $201.10 early, if I give them the $202.10 early, then I don't have to give them the $999, the $998, and the $997. I just got my $603.30 of equity for free. Not a reduced, but for free. I like free. What about you? Listen, so far so good. Is everybody with me so far? Is there anybody not with me that needs me to go over this part before we go to the next part? Okay, we've been here 51 minutes so far. Pastor, you need to tell me how much time I have because listen, I can go all night. I'm just kidding. I'm not going to go all night. I'm not going to go all night. So I'm not seeing anything. If I see something later, I can come back. But I know somebody might be thinking, Don, what if I don't have any extra money or I don't have $200? Okay. Number one, I'm going to show you where 99% of you do have the money. Okay. That remind me to talk about managing your finances in when I come back. Okay. But most people grossly underestimate their discretionary money. That means the money that's left over after paying the bills. Most people underestimate that. They have more money than they think they have. Okay? Joycelyn says, please take your time. Okay. What if you're thinking, I don't have enough money? I want to show you something, and you tell me if this is valuable to you. I pick up pennies in the parking lot. Okay? So if that embarrasses you, you don't want to go on a walk with me. because I will stop to pick up pennies. And here's why. Remember when we said $200 prepaid on that mortgage will save us about $1,000 in interest? Well, what if I don't have $200? What if I just put $100 down? Okay, well, it's me and the missus says, wow, this is a wealth of information. Thank you. Listen, before I forget, the Pill Method has a YouTube channel. The Pill Method has a YouTube channel. We have over 500 videos up, and we go over a lot of this information. I mean, subjects you probably never even thought of. Tomorrow, we go over investing. All right. So tomorrow we're going to go over investing and how all of this ties together. All right. So we're on Wednesdays, which is a replay. We're on live Friday mornings and Sunday mornings at 9:30 a.m. Eastern time. But if that's too early for you, don't worry about it. I would love to have you on live. Okay. Because when you come on our show, you have the ability to come into the studio and talk with us and ask your questions. But if you don't catch the live, that's okay. Catch the replay. Okay. So we go over a lot of things when it comes to finances, teaching what is the correct way to understand how a loan works. This is what my Asperger's brain sees. A person who is what we call neurodivergent. So if you pay that $100 instead of the $200, then you're going to save half the interest. That's $500. Let me go back. That's $500. Is it worth it? If I prepay the $100, it's not going to do very much to how much I owe. That's discouraging. But if I knew my $100 would save me $500 in interest, do you realize that's a 500% return on your money? That's an ROI of 500%. Where else can you put $100? How long would it take your $100 in your bank to make $500 worth of interest? And besides, this ROI, you don't have to pay taxes on. $100 invested in your mortgage, in this mortgage, saves $500 in interest. How do you like that? Well, I don't have 100, but I do have 50. It'll save $250. $25 saves $125. Let's drop all the way down to $3.13. Folks, if you gave me $3.13 and I gave you back $18.75, how many times would you do that? Do you realize your bank has to do the same thing? If you give them $3.13 on this loan, it makes it impossible for them to charge you $18.75 for every $3.13 you're giving them. Isn't that something? All right. So live tomorrow at 6:30 Pacific time. That's correct. Okay. Yeah. 6:30 Pacific time. All right. Live tomorrow. Go to Pill Method and YouTube, and then subscribe. All right. And you'll be notified whenever we go live. All righty. And we use StreamYard as well. So you can actually come into our StreamYard studio and we'll put you right on the stage to ask your questions live. Joycelyn, you are so welcome. All right. So now I'm not done with this. I'm not done with this part. Let's look at this part. And you tell me how powerful this is once you understand how to read an amortization schedule. We can keep cutting this thing in half, $1.56, 78 cents, 39 cents. Do you see that 39 cents can save you $2.35 in interest? So even if you believe you don't have a lot of money, the amount of money that you prepay can save you a ton of interest, and you don't even realize it because we've never been taught. Okay? So what are you saying, Wendell? So you save the interest in column 2, but at the back end of the loan because you still have to make your monthly mortgage payment, correct? No, you don't save it at the back end. You save it now. Okay? You don't save it at the back end, you save it now. Wendell, I need you to work with me on this. So listen, because you asked this question, I'm going to get out of this PowerPoint right now, and I'm going to show you how you save it now instead of at the back end. Most people think that because this is what they've been told. You save at the back end. And when I hear save at the back end, I'm saying, why do it anyway? Because I'm still in the mortgage. I'm going to show you the proper way to think about this and not that. Okay. So let's get out of this right now. Okay. And we're going to put this on the screen. All right. Is everybody seeing this? An $800,000 mortgage at 7%. Okay. Here is the payment is $5,322.42. Everybody seeing that? And let me know if I need to make the numbers bigger. All right. All right. So let me put this here so I can look forward. All right. There we go. All right. 800,000 at 7%. Here's the payment. Let's break this down. When you close on this loan, the bank wants how much interest? $1,116,071.20. If you know what to do, you can cut this interest cost by 2/3. You need to focus, ladies and gentlemen, hear me now. Stop worrying about interest rate and start understanding interest cost. What is the cost of the interest, not the interest rate? Because interest rate, we've already determined this evening that interest rate is a liar. Okay? Interest rate is a liar. It's interest cost we need to focus in on and see what we can do to reduce interest cost. Okay? So let's take a look at this loan. We have $655.57 going to principal. $4,666.67. Okay. So if I prepay this, I save $4,600. Now we're talking to California mortgages, 800 to 1.5 to $2 million. Okay. Now we're talking California mortgages, right? So for $659 prepaid saves me $4,662.84. Can I get an amen on this one, ladies and gentlemen? Can I get that now? All right. And let me show you the benefit of having cumulative principal and cumulative interest. And Wendell, I promise to answer your question on this one. Here come the amens. I see them. Okay. The amount of principal in 1 year, you pay on this loan is $8,126.48. Are you seeing that? How much interest does the bank want in 1 year? What? $55,742.56. Ladies and gentlemen, the reason why you don't get cumulative principal and cumulative interest is because we're just thanking the Lord for the ability to get the loan to get a house in California so that our families can have a roof over our heads. And when we get into the habit of making that payment, we lose all track of interest cost. It just goes out of our mind. It never occurs to us. So on this loan in the first year, $55,742.56 of somebody's hard-earned money goes to interest, while only $8,000 pays down the loan. So here's my question. If I know I'm going to pay my loan down by $8,000 in the first year, do I have to give it to the bank in 12 monthly installments? Do I have to give this money, this $8,000, to the bank in 12 monthly installments of $600 and $700? Do I have to do that based on what we've learned tonight? Or if I have it, can I give it to the bank on line 1 let me do this for you. Okay. I'm going to put something on the screen. Remember, how much are we borrowing? $800,000. Okay. We're borrowing $800,000. I'm going to put my calculator on the screen so you can see this. And what if we prepaid the $8,126.48? What happens if we prepay that? Okay, what happens if we prepay that? Okay, let's see. I'm going to put in the 800,000. Okay, now here's the other thing I want to share with you, ladies and gentlemen. Anybody else? That's Dave Ramsey. That's Susie Orman. That's anybody else included. Whatever they're saying, it may sound nice, but if they're not showing you the numbers to prove what they're saying is true, don't you believe it. Make them show you the numbers. At the Pill Method, we show you the numbers. Okay, I got $800,000 here. I'm going to prepay $8,126.48. I'm going to give it to the bank on line 1. Okay, so let's subtract $8,126.48. It equals $791,873.52, or right here. It's right here. $791,873.52. To move this loan from point A, $800,000, to point B, $791,000, the bank wants to charge me $55,000 in interest. Okay? Isn't that right? Isn't that right, Wendell? To move from point A to point B, the bank's way, costs $55,000. But what if I give this to them all at one time, Wendell? What if I give it to them all at one time? Am I not paid down to here in just 1 month? Now, some of you have been blessed and have a little bit of money in the bank. What if you put your $8,000 here and got paid down to here in 1 month? What happens to all the interest between line 2 and line 12? What happens to that? So, Wendell, here's my question. If I give the bank this money up front and I'm paid down to here in 1 month, and I don't have to pay them $55,000 in interest to get it, am I saving that money up front or on the back end? You tell me. Or I could do it the bank's way and give them the $55,000 to get to here. Wendell said up front, give that man some applause. Give him some applause, ladies and gentlemen, because he said it. He said it right. He said it right. You know what? I love doing this, and I love it when the light bulbs come on. Okay, so let me get here. That's for Wendell. That's for Wendell. Okay, because listen, what we have been taught is one thing, but what is actually happening with our finances is another. No wonder we don't have the money. Listen, if I could pay this down to here I do have to pay them some interest, Wendell. I don't have to pay them $55,000, but to give the bank this money up front only costs me the interest on line 1. It costs $4,666.67 to pay down to here. Pay down to here instead of $55,000. That is a $51,000 savings because I now know how to read this thing. Every time I go over this, I get emotional because there's no reason for me to know what I know about this. I did not sit down and say, let me figure this thing out. That was not my goal. I didn't wire my brain this way. I had difficulty in school because of Because when I was going to school, they didn't know anything about ADD or Asperger's. They didn't have that back then. They didn't know what it was. All they knew is that this little boy couldn't sit still in his seat, and he couldn't talk at the right times. But when I look at this amortization schedule, this is what I see. This is what I see. And now I'm sharing it with you. This is my reason for being on the planet. Right here, right now. So Wendell says, if we paid $8,126 in February, are you saying we technically don't have another payment until? No, what I'm technically saying is this. This is good, Wendell. This is good. You're going to love this. All right. $8,126.48. If you prepay that, you're paid down to here in 1 month. And then the bank has to use this number to figure out how much interest you pay the next time. And this number gives us these two numbers. So if you pay in January, the $8,000, you're paid down to here in January. That means your February payment is now on line 13. How do you like them apples? The line 13 is your new number 2 payment. How's that? I got to get a drink, folks. I've been talking for an hour. Hold on for a second. Okay. Are you ready? Are you ready for a little bit more? Based on this information, I can now give you some other information that we absolutely should not do. Okay? Have you heard that it is best to put large down payments on your loan? Have you heard that? So somebody give me a number. Somebody give me a number to how much of a down payment. I mean, you have to put something down to get into the house. I understand that. But some of us have been blessed with the ability to put larger down payments. Okay? So what if I had the money to do a larger down payment? How much give me a number here that I could put on this mortgage. Somebody. Yeah, I love it when I could do it live because then I can get the answer right away. But somebody give me a number. How much of a down payment do you want to see on this? So it says 20%. Okay? 20%. Okay? So let's go ahead and do 20%. Because that's what we've been told. $800,000, okay, times 20%, okay, equals, that's $160,000. So if we did that, if we did $160,000, okay, that's 800,000, okay, minus 20%, equals $640,000. We'd have a $640,000 loan. Let's see what that looks like. All right, let's see what that looks like. So we're going to do 640,000. All right. So we're going to take this out and put in 640,000. At 7% for 30 years. That's a different payment there. So we're going to do that. All right. So let's compare the two. All right. Let me get rid of this advertising on this. Okay. So 640,000. And if we take a look at this, I've got a payment here of $5,322.42 versus a payment of $4,257.94. All right, looks like the down payment is winning. The down payment is winning so far. The bank wants interest paid $1,116,000. If I put that down, I'm down to $892,000. Well, it looks like if I put that down payment down, it looks like it's working, right? But what if I decide I want to get this loan instead and I can afford this payment? I can afford this payment. Do I still have my $160,000 in the bank? Do I still have it? If I still have it and I have this loan and I can afford this payment, what could I do with my $160,000 now, ladies and gentlemen? What could I do with that based on what you've learned tonight? You can invest it. You could do that. You could invest it, but you had planned to put it as a down payment. Wendell says, let's apply it to principal. Linda said prepayment. Here it comes. Prepayment. Because we have a program that can show us cumulative principal. Let's scroll down. Do you see here? All we have to do is go to cumulative principal and scroll down to $160,000. Let's see what happens. Dun, 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 dun. So we're scrolling. We can put all this on line 1, ladies and gentlemen. Line 1, if you wanted to. And look what happens. We get down to $160,000. That's $159,717.07. We've taken off 152 payments with our $160,000 prepayment. Our next mortgage payment after number 1 is on line 153. And look here, folks, don't we still have a $640,000 loan? Never, ever, 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 ever put a big down payment on the loan when you could do this. 152 payments. Okay, 152 payments divided by 12. You could take that money and knock off 12 and a half years. 12 and a half years you can knock off with that down payment on a 30-year loan, instead of having a $640,000 loan starting at payment number 1. Ladies and gentlemen, based on what you've just heard, can you think of any reason why I would want to make a large down payment instead of using that money as a prepayment? Where have you ever heard that before? Doesn't it make sense? Doesn't it make sense? What else have you learned that people are telling us that we should do? All right. So I'm saying never do a large down payment. Okay. Have you heard this? Have you heard this? Marry the house and date the rate. Marry the house and date the rate. Don't worry about getting this loan at 7%. When the interest rates drop to 5%, you can refinance to the 5%. Have you ever heard that? So ask yourself this question. If I'm saving money by refinancing, who has to be losing money? If I'm saving money by refinancing, who has to be losing money? Okay. Can I show you the difference? Can I show you the difference between that? Oh, and remind me to talk about consolidating your debt, refinancing, and taking that money to pay off other debt. That is another trick of the bank. And you will not like what I show you when we see that. Okay. So I'm going to do 2 loans here. We're going to duplicate this. All right. And I'm going to take a look at this. All right. There we go. Let's go back. Okay. I got my $800,000 loan at 7%, and I'm in the camp. I'm totally in the camp. I drank the Kool-Aid, And when the interest rates drop, I'm going to get that new interest rate, and then I'm going to end up better somehow. Somehow I'm going to end up better. Okay, but watch this. So $800,000. I don't know anything about prepayment. I'm just making my regular mortgage payment here. Okay, so every 5 to 7 years, Americans refi their mortgages. Every 5 to 7 years, Americans refi. Okay, the bank knows that. So that's why when you in your loan, somewhere between 5 and 7 years, that's why your mailboxes get stuffed full. That's why your phone rings off the hook with people trying to refinance you. Even your own bank that has you locked into a higher interest rate, even your own bank is calling you to refinance to a lower rate so you can save money, which means they would be losing money. Why is your own bank calling you to refinance? Have you ever thought about that? Yes, so you guys got me at the higher interest rate. Why are you trying to save me money when it means you're going to lose money? Because we're not taught to think that way. We're not taught to think that way. So let's go down to 5 years, okay? Just 5 years on this loan. 5 years on this loan, ladies and gentlemen. We've paid it down by $46,947.33. Just 5 years. Look how much interest we've paid to get this much equity. This is why the bank does not give us this, because we would fall over if we saw how much interest we paid to get to here. Isn't that crazy? And now we're thinking about refinancing. But what if we go to 7 years? That's 5, 6, 7. 7 years. Paid it down by $70,000. Look at that. $376,000. Wendell says, banks still make money because the 30-year reset. You know, Wendell, people think they get the lower payment because of the lower interest rate. Well, you're right. The major factor in lowering the payments is dividing what they owe now over a new 30-year loan. That's what gives you the lower payment, a new 30-year loan. So think about this. When you're in your mortgage for 5 years or 7 years, let's say it's 7, I'm in my loan for 7 years, I refinance, I get a new 30-year loan. Is that now a 37-year mortgage? And 7 years from now, I'll do it again. And 7 years from then, I'll do it again. This is why Americans don't pay off their mortgages, because they don't have 30-year mortgages. They have a string of 5 to 7 year mortgages until they die. Wendell, you're exactly right. You're exactly right. That's what happens. So let me show you what happens if we do this. Let me show you what happens with the bank makes money in about 7 different ways when you refinance. I only have time to show you one. Can I show you that one? Can I show you one way? Okay. So let's take a look at now. We're going to refinance the $729,000. Okay. Somebody says, if you, oh yes, please do. Please do. All right. 700. We're paid down to here, $729,000. We're paid down to here. Okay. In 7 years. And the person that sold us this house said, to help us feel better, says, when the interest rates drop, you can refinance. So let's say the interest rates drop to 5%. Okay. And a lot of people would jump on that with both feet. I was at 7, now I'm at 5, because we think that the lower interest rates are better. Okay. The lower interest rates are better. Let me show you one thing that's happening here. So we're going to take this number and refinance it. Okay. We're going to copy that. We're going to put it here in this. I'm going to paste it in. We got to get rid of this comma because this program doesn't like the commas. Okay. And we're going to get a new 30-year loan. Okay. But guess what? We're not refinancing 729,000 because we have to pay closing cost on this. So let's just say the closing cost is just $10,000. I know it's probably a little bit more, but let's just say it's about $10,000. So that would mean we're refinancing $739,000, not $729,000. Correct? Okay. So, and then when you're dealing with this and getting ready to close, I said, don't worry about it. We're just roll it into the loan. It's going to only raise your payment a few dollars, and that's true. So don't pay it out of pocket. Roll it into the loan. Besides, you're getting a new 5% rate. Okay. But you're not borrowing that money at 5%. Let me show you why. Okay. So here's your new payment on 739,000. Now, your payment just dropped to 3,968.07, and that's what makes you feel good. You were at 5,322.42. Now you're at 3,968.07. Somehow we feel better. Yeah, but we forgot about the fact that we have a 30-year loan. But now I need you to think about this. Remember the $10,000 you rolled into this loan at your new 5% interest rate? How long does it take us to pay off that $10,000 for the closing? And how much interest do we pay on it? Can I share that with you right now? Okay. And don't be mad at anyone who has sold you a refinance, because I guarantee you they didn't look at it this way either. This is the first time they've seen it. Okay. So we're paying off the mortgage. And remember, we want to pay off the first $10,000 first, correct? Oh, it only takes us a year to pay off the $10,000. Look at that. 1 year, pay off the $10,000. How much interest did we pay on it, though? Listen, I'm going to wait for you all to put this in the chat. I borrowed $10,000, and it takes me a year to pay off that $10,000 that I used to roll into the loan for the closing costs. How much interest did I pay on that $10,000? I'm going to wait here till somebody types it in. I need to get a drink. How much interest did we pay on 10,000? Nope. It's the one to the right. You're looking at the one on the left, Tosin. Go to the one on the right of the 10,000. That's the number you want. There it is. No, almost. It is the 36,711. Well, I see you saying, I see you right here. Yeah. But if you want to get the closest you can to the 10,000, it would be here. It would be the 33,672. Look at that. Look at that. You see what I'm saying? Does anybody ever pointed that out to you? How much it really costs to refinance this thing? So if we're closer to $33,000 or even $36,000 for $10,000, that's a lot of money. All right. So your refinance actually costs you $43,000 to $46,000, between $43,000 and $46,000. That's what it really costs for this refinance. That's one way the bank makes money on this. So let me ask you something. If you borrow $100 from me and pay me back $100, but I say, I want $100 interest on that. You borrowed $100 from me. You paid the $100 back. I say, give me $100 on top of that. How much interest did I just ask for? Isn't that 100% interest? That's 100% interest. So if you borrow $10,000 from the bank and pay it back and pay them $10,000 interest, isn't that 100% interest? But if you borrow $10,000 from the bank and pay them $20,000 in interest, isn't that 200% interest? But what if you borrow $10,000 from the bank and you pay them $30,000 in interest? Isn't that 300% interest? Actually, it's 360%. This is a person with perfect credit, and they didn't even realize that they're paying 300% interest on a $10,000 loan. None of us realize it. Now think of all the mortgages in all of the banks that are trying to get you to refinance and roll the fee into the mortgage. How much money are they really making in interest on these loans? Yeah, that part. Okay. So now what if somebody, I'm going to cut this one short. Okay. Wendell says, please share this amortization calculator website. Oh, okay. Here it is. Look at Wendell says, I want to do this myself. All right, here it is. We're going to, let's see. If it won't let it, sometimes I can't do it. Won't let me do it. Nope. I have to put it in the private chat and Pastor can put it out there for you. So I'm putting it in the private chat so Pastor can put it in. I can't put it in. Okay. So, but it's brettwhissell.net. BRETWHISSEL. BRETWHISS as in Sam, S as in Sam, EL.net. So there it is. There you go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, now you have it. You need to play around with this thing. You need to play around with it. All right. This is a teaching tool for us. I do not use this with my clients, but it's a definite teaching tool to help them to understand what's going on. You're welcome, Wendell. You're very welcome. All right. So I've got another example here about rolling in high interest debt to your mortgage. High interest debt to your mortgage. Let's just say they paid this loan down by quite a bit already. All right. And maybe it was down to $750,000. Okay. And they rolled $50,000 worth of debt into here. Okay. Have you ever heard of that? They take their equity and pay off a bunch of high interest debt. Some of that debt is as high as, 29% interest on credit cards, So they're paying off high interest debt and they're lowering their payment by $500 to $1,000 a month by rolling that debt into their mortgage. Never do that. Just don't do it. What if you could pay off everything in about 7 years anyway? There's no reason to roll it into the mortgage. But let me show you. You saw what happens with $10,000. What would happen if I rolled in on a $750,000 mortgage? I rolled in another $50,000 to pay off some high interest debt. Let's do that again. Okay. This is at 7% to pay off $50,000. Okay. Takes me about 5 years to do it. Look how much interest you pay on $50,000 that you just rolled into the mortgage. Please don't do that. We're wondering why we don't have the money to put into the work. We're doing the best that we know how. Just by living, the devil is winning. Do you hear me? Just by living and doing what we know to do what's right, the devil is winning because our money is going here when we should be putting money away for our what? Our children's children. And it's kind of hard to do it if we're giving away $285,000 to pay off $49,000 in debt. Kind of hard. What if we could pay 75% less? Oh my goodness. We can have more house, have more equity, pay out less money, invest more so we can give more. Do you know how much is in the Bible talking about that? I mean, we could spend so much time learning what the Bible says about our increase, getting our increase. Listen, God has, he has a certain thought towards you. He knows what he has in mind for you. And I guarantee you, he has more for you than you believe you have for yourself. What if we were to find out what he has for us and get what God wants to give you? I don't know what that is. And I'm not talking about naming it and claiming it. I'm talking about the fact that there are very rich people in the world that don't even care about God. And and they are managing his resources. Who do you think he would rather manage his resources? You tell me. Who do you think God would want to managing his resources so that we could do right by the resources and have Satan and his imps shaking in their boots because we're using the money the right way to spread this truth? What do you think? Come on, everybody. I love it. I absolutely love it. Okay. So, let me show you something that's very interesting that I've only seen one place. Okay? I'm going to show you something that you're only going to see here. I've got this 800,000 at 7%. I've got a 360-month loan. We're going to do the same loan, 800,000. Okay, at 7%, but we're going to do a 15-year mortgage. Okay. Okay, 15-year mortgage. All right, and I'm going to do a 10-year mortgage as well. Okay, we're going to do, let's get rid of this one. We're going to do the same loan. We're going to duplicate this tab, and we're going to do 120 months. That's 10 years. I want to show you something that no one has ever showed you before. Okay, let's delete that and execute this. All right, there you go. Get rid of the advertising. All right, so we have three different loans, and so there's a lot of people that talk about getting a shorter term. I never get a shorter term. I always get the longest term available, even when I buy a car. Okay, let me show you something that's very important here, and no one has ever. And Wendell, when you do this, I want you to do this one and show everybody at the church that what I'm saying, that I just didn't make this up. 30-year loan. What is the first interest payment? The first interest payment is $4,666.67. That's the first interest payment on a 30-year loan. And in the first year, you pay $55,000 in interest. Okay, $55,742. Now we're going to take a look at the 15-year loan. That's 180 payments. Payments a little bit higher, but I need you to see what the first interest payment is. $4,666.67. It's exactly the same as the 30-year mortgage. Exactly the same. The total interest on the 30-year for the first year is $55,000, $55,742. The first year is $55,000 on the 15-year loan. It's just a little bit different. You would think that this first interest payment would be different on this loan. It would be different on the 15-year loan. It's got to be different on the 10-year loan. Nope. Very same thing. Folks, the difference is not in the first few interest payments. The difference is in the principal payment. And I need you to know this. Control the principal payment and you control the loan. Write it down. I'm almost done here. Wendell says the difference is the principal, and you're right. I'm almost done for tonight. Okay? Unless you guys ask some questions. The principal, control the principal payment, you control the loan. Interest payments you can skip, don't matter. Control the interest payment, the principal payment, you control the loan. Interest payments you skip, you don't matter. Once I make this first mortgage payment on the 30-year loan, it only takes $659.58 to eliminate line 2 and this much interest. On the 15-year loan, look at my principal payments now. If I want to get rid of line 2, it costs $2,538 to prepay to get rid of a whole line. At the 10-year loan, if I want to get rid of line 2, now I got to come up with $4,648.98 to get rid of one line. The banks know this. You lower the term, you make it harder to pay the loan off faster and easier. When you lower the term, the people that own the bank know that. But the people that work at the bank, they're looking at simply this loan cost $1,116,000. This loan costs $494,000. This loan costs $314,000. That's what they're looking at. That's what they're looking at. They're not looking at the fact that you just made it harder. If I want to prepay, it doesn't do as much work for me. Can I show you something with the lower interest rates? with the higher loan terms. Look at this. If my principal payments are here, this is what I attack the loan with. I attack the loan with the principal payments. I attack the loan with the principal payments. So $8,000 with this lower principal payment knocks off 1 year's worth of payments, and my next mortgage payment is here on line 13. Let me show you what $8,000 does to a 15-year mortgage with the same interest rate. $8,000, it doesn't even knock off 4 payments. Don't you know the people that own the bank know that? You better believe the people that own the bank know it. That your $8,000 is only going to knock off not even 4 payments. Oh man, and don't get the 10-year. Oh my gosh. Listen, yeah, it only does one. Lord have mercy. Has anybody ever pointed this out to you before? Do you see the benefit in learning how to read an amortization schedule so that we can come up with a program? See, over the last 18 years, we've developed a system that takes this amortization schedule for your mortgages, your student loans, your credit cards, everything, puts it all together and says, this is what you do here with this much money. It's like GPS for your money. So you don't have to do all the math. We do it. And so that you can understand this. Now, some of you have parents and grandparents that actually paid off a mortgage years ago. And they said, what are you crying about? Our interest rates were 12 and 18%. Anybody ever hear that? Stop crying. Our interest rates were 12 to 18%. Have you heard that? Can I show you something? The loans were cheaper back then. The loans were much cheaper back then. Let's do this. We're going to bring up Brett Whistle again. We have a $100,000 mortgage. I'm going to put in an 18% loan. 18% for 30 years. Some of you would just fall over dead if I showed you 18%. Interest rates actually got that high back in the 70s. Okay? Let me show you something, and I need somebody to read this thing and tell me what the benefits were while your parents and grandparents were able to pay off their mortgages at 18% when you see it. Okay? Payment, $1,507.09. Here's the breakdown. Look at the principal payment. Look at the interest payment. Why were your parents and your grandparents able to pay off their mortgages faster in those days with the higher interest rates? Can you see it? It makes a difference when you know how to read it, doesn't it? I think some of you have passed tonight's test. Look at this. An extra $7.20 knocks off 1 month off this loan. An extra $92 knocks off 1 year and saves this much interest. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that absolutely crazy when you know how to read this thing finally for the first time in your life? Okay? And now I'm going to show you one last thing. How does the bank take a 6% mortgage? How do they take a 6 or 7% mortgage and make so much money with it? I'm going to show you the math right now, and it doesn't take that much time. I'm going to change this to 6% because it makes it a little easier to understand. Okay? We'll change this loan to 6%. Okay? I'm going to put my calculator on the screen. Okay? Here's what the bank does. They take your 6%, they divide it by 12. 6% and divide it by 12. That's 0.06 divided by 12. And they get this number, 0.005. This is the number they use to multiply by your unpaid balance each month. And because of amortization, something interesting happens. Something very interesting happens because this loan is amortized. So we're going to take this 0.55 and we're going to multiply it by the 800,000 times 800,000 equals $4,000 in interest. Look at that. That's what they're doing. When they do that, guess what? This is your brand new mortgage. You thought you had one mortgage. No. Every month you get a brand new mortgage. It's not one mortgage, it's 360 separate ones. So the next month, they're going to charge you that, take that 6%, divide it by 12. They're going to take that 0.005, whatever your interest rate is, just divide it by 12, take that number and multiply it by any number in here. So now we owe $799,203.60. So we're going to multiply that by our new mortgage number, which is $799,203.6 equals $3,996.02. Because it's 8 here, we have to round that up to a 2. Look here. $3,996.02. This is how it is so expensive. They're taking 1/12 of the interest rate and multiplying it by the unpaid balance 360 times. Not one mortgage, 360 mortgages. And when you know what to do, you can cut this 360 payments down to about, between 78 and 90 payments on average instead of 360. I hope this has been beneficial to you. There's a lot more to learn, but I've had you here for 1 hour and 49 minutes, and we know we don't want to wear out the saints, but I want to thank you so much for the time. Pastor, what do you think?
Don, y'all, can we show Don some love in the chat? This was so awesome, Don. I mean, really. Hey, we gotta have you back consistently. And this is really in line with our vision as a church, where we are just trying to raise up a group of people, as you started at the top, that are going to be able to do more for the kingdom of God. Just everything you shared was eye-opening, so powerful, and one of my people I see on the chat, they're about to make a purchase for a house. I know that this thing blessed them today, and we appreciate it. So can we just show Don's love in the chat? See here, just show our brother some love in the chat. This was awesome, and we're going to continue to build on what we did for this month with Black Wealth Matters, and so we thank you. So, y'all, we're going to get the word out. I'm going to talk to Don and just try to see how we can get him back. But Don, is there anything else that you want to share? I know that you gave us access, just with your YouTube page and other things. Anything you want to share with us before we close? Well,
I tell you, if you want, you can reach out to me, especially if you're getting ready to purchase. You definitely want to talk to us. You need somebody that's going to advocate for you. You can contact me at ICE. That's ICE, the number 10, the letter K.com. ICE10K.com. ICE10K.com. And reach out to us and let us help you. Somebody else mentioned, Pastor, just before we go, somebody else mentioned about prepayment penalties. Prepayment penalties. In the U.S., there are very few, if any, prepayment penalties on residential properties. But in Bermuda, they're all over the place.
Wow.
Prepayment penalties are huge in Bermuda. So I've taught this in Bermuda, and then I got some information from the Bermuda Bank, and in a year-end statement, Bermuda Bank one year made $3 million in prepayment penalties. So I had to think, I says, why would anybody pay the penalty? Because the penalty is a lot less than the interest saved. I mean, a lot less. Prepayment penalties just make you want to avoid Just change one word, prepayment cost. How much does it cost me to prepay? But then figure out how much interest you're going to save. I showed a couple in Canada how to save $100,000 in interest. And Canada has on the bank's website has a calculator, and it shows you how much you're going to pay in penalties. To save $100,000, it costs $1,200 in penalties. But they never tell you.
Woo!
They never tell you how much interest you're saving. They just tell you what the penalty is.
Look, we are on a mission, Don, to help our people to get financially literate. That is one of the goals and the visions of the church. And we got to have you back. So y'all stay tuned. We're going to have Don back. Please check out his YouTube page. There's a wealth of information there. If you need to just reach out to him personally, he's given us the information to do that. Y'all, let's let God take us up to the next level. And again, it's not for our own like greed, but it's literally for the kingdom. And we want to be those stewards that God can trust with whatever he wants to pass through us, that we're going to pass and be a blessing to other people. So,
exactly.
Don, thank you again. Let's just pray, y'all, before we go, and then we're going to let Don go this evening. God, we again just thank you so much for the things that we've heard. God, our eyes have been opened. Even at the beginning, what Don shared just about the strategy of the enemy as it relates to the people of God, to just keep us so burdened in debt that we're not able to do for the kingdom as we would like to. And so our prayer is up with people, a generation financially literate and debt free. Lord, you would just help us to blessing not only to our people, but Lord, help us to advance your kingdom. All these things we pray, Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Amen. So listen, thank you so much for the invitation. I'd like to come back anytime you have me.
All right. Thank you, Don. God bless. God bless everybody.